Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso at the1916company.com for purchase pricing and availability questions concerning this watch. Today, an old friend and one who does not visit often enough, the 2008 to 2009 Patek Philippe 5070P Chronograph. This was the last of the regular production 5070s. I know we got a few continuation bits for the Saatchi Gallery event, but stay with me here. From 1998 to 2009, the 5070 was delivered in first yellow and then later white, rose, gold, and platinum. And production was always very limited, generally to about 250 pieces per metal per year. But for the last run, the platinum pieces, it's generally believed that fewer than 250 were made, with a popular estimate being approximately 200 pieces, and I agree with that. So this is a rare watch by any measure. Prior to the era of the 29-535 caliber, Patek chronographs, particularly manual wind chronographs, were far less common and less prolific. And so this is a great opportunity for someone who wants to own something approaching the ultimate manual wind, modern day Patek Philippe chronograph. It was big for 1998. When the yellow gold version arrived, no one could believe Patek had made a dress watch that was 42 millimeters in diameter. Rolling into the profile right here, you can see that the timepiece is fairly thin at 12 millimeters thick from lug tip to lug tip. It's not all that scary, 48.2 millimeters with a broad 21 millimeter spacing between the lugs. And because this is a modern platinum Patek Philippe, of course, we have that top Vesselton brilliant cut diamond between the lugs to remind you. Thrown it on the wrist, it's a big watch, but the lug-to-lug is shorter than it should be for a watch of this dimension, so it wears better on a small wrist. I could recommend it on a wrist of 15 centimeters circumference or larger. My wrist is 16. It has a pagoda-like multiply stepped bezel and case, so it will actually slide quite nicely underneath the dress cuff. It's got a solidity and a weight to it that's really appealing if you like a heavy luxury watch, and for me, I really do. So this is sort of the realization of a dream of what a very simple time-only chronograph should be for me. I think this is a very purist style of Patek Philippe, in spite of the fact that once you've been told about the visual gymnastics on the dial, you can't quite see past it, but you learn to love it. Yes, it's true. The Lemania 2310 base that becomes the Patek 2770, that Lemania is much smaller than this 42 millimeter watch. So we have these pagoda-like steps to the bezel, and you see 1, 2, 3 steps, and then we have these concentric tracks with our seconds track and then a tachymetric scale inboard, so you don't notice just how close together the registers are on the dial. And again, you can't unsee it, but it's one of those compromises you live with because the watch itself is so sublime and it represents an all-time high for a Patek Philippe chronograph design. Also, the feel of it on the wrist, eyes closed, you just know it's something special. Leaf hands, including for the sub-registers. We have white gold hands, we have white gold numerals, applique, high grade. If you look carefully here, you can see that there's actually nothing to remove from the top of the case. Look closely and you will struggle to find a seam. The whole thing's monoblock, and so everything that loads into the case loads through the back. You've got your dial and your movement going in through the back, and it is a screwed-in case back, though with a push-down crown. It's a 30-meter watch. It was the long-awaited successor to the 1463, which was discontinued probably in the early 70s. The last few of them left the regular production line, and then it wasn't until 1998 with the 5070 that Patek had something approaching a water-resistant manual wind standard chronograph in the catalog. So this was a landmark piece and a follow-up to a legend that lives up to the legend. The dial is a blue metallic sunburst, and you can see we have these vintage-inspired rectangular pushers, the Patek Calatrava Cross on the crown, and then we have welded-on lugs, which is a really old-school way of making a lug. You make the case, you make the lug, you insert the lug into a slot in the case, you weld it, and then you hand file it to create that clean break. So that's how this case was made. It's a slow way of going, but Patek estimated in its own publications that it was only making 250 57 or 5070s per case metal per year. So when you're making that few watches, and remember, they often had distinct runs, yellow gold, then white gold, then rose gold, then platinum. So they were making very few of these in practice. The watch does feature a fluting on the edge of the lugs, and I think it's important to emphasize this because this is the first thing, along with the bezel sharpness, that I look for when I'm trying to determine the condition of a 5070. And what I can see here is that this watch has been professionally refinished, but it has not never been refinished. The fluting is still distinct, but it's not quite as razor sharp as it would have been from Geneva, so I think it's important to note that in my assessment of the overall condition. It's very good. The watch features a clasp, and it is a full folding clasp. It's got a radial spring type system here that makes it a little bit more resistant to accidental deployment than most friction fits. You can see that Calatrava Cross on the buckle, in confirmation that this is a platinum clasp to match a platinum watch. Turning it all over, you have the caliber 2770, and I think it's a misconception that this is just a Lemania 2310. There are a lot of changes, so let's go over all of them. The same basic architecture in this watch is still used today by, for example, Vacheron, and it is an all-time great. It was used in caliber 321 form as the movement that went to the moon on Omega Speedmasters, but Patek takes things and changes them, leaving almost no individual part untouched. Let's start with the finish, Geneva seal. All of these were Geneva seal. Let's take a look at the balance. You can see it's Patek's Gyromax free-sprung architecture, not a mobile stud index. We've also got a overcoil hairspring rather than a flat hairspring. Instead of a 48-hour power reserve, we have a 60-hour power reserve, and you can see 24 joules, that's standard, but adjusted to hot, cold, and 8 positions. We have a capped column wheel and lateral clutch. The capped column wheel in age-old, time-honored Geneva style. The lateral clutch, very traditional and beautiful. Lateral clutch chronographs, by the way, at Patek Philippe, they go to higher level watchmakers with a higher level of internal Patek Philippe certification. Two features we have here. The combination of the lateral clutch and the metal overcoil demand a higher level of watchmaking experience. So you might think silicon and a vertical clutch are more sophisticated. They're actually a lot easier to sweep through service quickly and with a lower level of skill. So this is actually considered to be more premium. We have a little golden chaton for the driving wheel of the chronograph clutch. Chronograph parts, the steel ones, you can see they're beveled on their sides, satinated on their tops. The brass bridges and plates, you can see we have our brass bridges. They have Côte de Genève across the top. We have lovely mirrored bevels, but also bevels inside the screw and the jewel sinks with satination on the wheels. It is a beautiful movement with a great heritage behind it, but Patek does make it its own. Again, it is not interchangeable with the standard 2310 or even something like the Vacheron version of this movement. If you love this watch, reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.